You are terminally online. Yes, you, the viewer. In fact, I would argue that, well, a lot of people are terminally online. More people than you would think. But what does it even mean to be terminally online? Is it defined by the average amount of time somebody spends online every single day? Or is it a matter of the online activities that people engage in? Or is it a combination of the two? The answer, of course, is I genuinely have no idea. There's not really even a definitive definition. I mean, if you go on Urban Dictionary, you'll notice that there are quite a few definitions, actually. So, which definition is correct? Well, all of them. Why are they all correct? I'm not interested in technical definitions, nor am I interested in whether or not something technically fits under a certain definition. Ultimately, the whole point of language is to communicate information. That's why it slowly changes over time. And that's why I'm only interested in the way we use language and what terminally online actually means when we say it. I'd like to preface this entire video by saying it's not a matter of whether you are or aren't terminally online. That dichotomy doesn't exist. It's not as black and white as that. There's some gray area, believe it or not. It's almost like the world is a complicated place. I would say that the majority of us probably are somewhere in this gray area. Is there somebody watching this who isn't terminally online? Maybe. But I'm guessing that the vast majority of people watching this are terminally online. Myself included. It's just a question of the extent to which somebody is terminally online, and the reasons as to why. Now, terminally online is usually a negative description of somebody. It is a description of too much. But how much is too much? Is spending 4 hours a day looking at internet politics a waste of your time to the point where you're terminally online, if that's how you're using that amount of time? And if the answer is yes, what if you're a political streamer and that's what you do for a living? Are you still terminally online if you're making money from it? Why is there a distinction there? Does it matter if it's a hobby versus your job? At the end of the day, all of these things are arbitrary. You could argue that somebody who watches, let's say, every single Vosh stream is terminally online, but you probably wouldn't say that Vosh himself is terminally online, even though he's spending the same amount of time online, right? The reason being because he gets paid. So clearly, terminally online is meant to be a negative description. We already know that. But why are we all terminally online? I mean, ultimately, I guess it really just depends on who you are as a person. You may be terminally online as a means of avoiding depression, for instance. Personally, I find that escapism is one of my personal favorite strategies for avoiding depression, or at least it has been in the past. I've tried getting better about that. It also denotes the idea of being antisocial. But what if you spend 8 hours a day calling people on Discord? We would all agree that that's terminally online, right? But is that really antisocial? I would argue no, actually. That isn't antisocial. I mean, you're interacting with other human beings for 8 hours a day, are you not? Well, the problem there is not calling people on Discord or being social, it is the 8 hours part. If you were to hang out with friends for 8 hours every day, you probably wouldn't be productive enough then either. It just wouldn't be stigmatized nearly as much, which I find fascinating. Ultimately, whether or not you participate in online culture deliberately or by accident, you are terminally online. The whole concept of terminally online in of itself is a very terminally online concept, inherently. Why is that? Well, it's because you have to be terminally online to an extent to know what terminally online even is. Nobody who isn't terminally online is going to tell you that you're terminally online. Because pretty much anyone who isn't terminally online is not going to even know what the term terminally online even is. I mean, why don't you go ask some old person down the street if they know what it means to be terminally online? Why don't you ask your 45-year-old uncle if they know what terminally online means? You already know that the answer is going to be no. So what is even the point of creating the term terminally online in the first place? Well, I mean, it's really just another way we categorize people. Every social categorization is arbitrary to an extent, whether it be gender, a very arbitrary social categorization. Nationality is also another arbitrary social categorization, though it is also a legal one. Your ethnicity is another arbitrary social categorization, as it is a distinction that can be broken down infinitely. Every way in which we categorize people is arbitrary and, well, it's supposed to serve some sort of utility. Usually when we categorize people, it is for the sake of efficiency. So when we categorize people as terminally online, the utility being served is that we are expressing the fact that this is an unhealthy amount of time that you are spending online, so much so that I believe it is necessary to stigmatize spending such time online. But ultimately, we all spend way too much time online now. It's 2023, and the amount of time that newer generations spend online is only going to increase. Is that a bad thing? Well, kind of. But not necessarily. And even though it's always going to be important to have human interaction that is face-to-face, the things we do in our day-to-day lives is going to be online more and more as we progress as a society. For instance, everybody went to the grocery store to buy groceries, and to the mall to buy clothes, and to a restaurant to buy food. You can order all of these things online now, and a lot of people do. I mean, it's easy, it's convenient, it only costs a little bit more money, but you are still decreasing human interaction when you do this. When you order food online, you're not talking to a waiter or a waitress, you're just ordering food online. When you check out a list of items online, you're not interacting with a human being the same way you would if you were to buy them in person. In a sense, because we're spending more and more time inside instead of going out and doing things, which we are all guilty of. Don't lie to yourself. I see you. Yeah, I'm looking at you. You right there. Yeah, I know you. You're terminally online. Online things are replacing things that would normally be in person. So how does this affect us as people? Well, I don't think it affects us positively. I mean, meeting new people used to be easy. You know, you just went out and did stuff. And other people went out and did stuff. But a lot of people don't even do that anymore. They just stay inside, whether it be to play video games or to watch YouTube or to, well, best case scenario, talk to people online, which I guess would be the closest thing they do to actual human interaction. Not that it's not actual human interaction, but let's be real, it's different from face-to-face human interaction. You don't build friendships the same way you used to. This isn't to say that everything used to be better back in the day, or that technology is inherently bad, or that we should ban people from using technology for a certain amount of time. I've never been in favor of that. What I am in favor of is, well, maybe a social push to go out and do things more. Not one where you're a loser or a bad person if you don't go do those things, but I guess still recognizing the fact that, yes, this is something preferable. I mean, it's not all bad, right? I mean, there are dating apps and whatnot where you can meet people that you otherwise wouldn't have met, statistically speaking. That is, if we ignore the fact that you have to spend hours mindlessly swiping based on, what, physical appearance, a 200-character description of the person that doesn't actually describe them as a person and only describes 2 activities that they enjoy and maybe their height or interests. But assuming that, let's say you go on Tinder and you get a ton of matches, does that even mean that you're going to build long-term relationships from that? Well, yeah, it's possible. Is it likely? No, not really. I mean, the apps are designed by companies after all. Their number one goal is to make money. So how do they make money? By keeping people on the app, of course, so that they can advertise the premium version of the app. Is it worth getting the premium version of the app? No. Obviously it's not. You shouldn't have to pay money to make friends. That is absurd. But let's say you decide to go out and do things. How do you even approach someone? Where do you find people that are similar to you? I mean, I don't know. You think I have the answer to that? I mean, sure, it's easier when you're a little kid and all you have to do is just play with other kids at recess. Even when you're, I don't know, still in school, whether it be high school or college. It's still a little bit easier, right? You can sign up for certain clubs or activities where there are other people who have at least one interest in common with you. Even that alone is a good way to get human interaction. But what if you're in your 40s? What do you do then? I genuinely don't know the answer. Frankly, I don't think most people do. Where do you even meet people? If you don't have mutual friends to meet them through, what activities do you even do with people at that point? Do you go to Great America and go on a roller coaster because now you are financially stable enough to buy that for yourself and have fun? No, because now that's not socially acceptable anymore. You're too old to do that. And now that you have been alive for a certain number of years, you're no longer allowed to have fun in certain ways. Sure, you could argue that people are lonelier now that they're terminally online. But is loneliness a new phenomenon? No. People have been lonely since the beginning of mankind. There have always been outcasts and people that don't have social lives. There have always been people that are considered to be outcasts, or socially awkward, or people who don't fit in. And as a result of that, they end up being lonely. In fact, those people are more likely to find communities in which they fit in modern society, especially if they're doing so online. In fact, there are definitely a good number of people who actually benefit socially from the fact that everybody else is online. At least then they can interact with other people, right? As opposed to having to do something like going outside and approaching people in person, which, let's be real, is terrifying for a lot of people. It's probably terrifying for you, in fact. Yes, you, the viewer. So what does this all actually mean? Where is society headed in the near future? How will future generations interact with other people? I guess only time will tell. It's not like it is a secret or a mystery as to whether or not being online too often is a negative thing for your mental health. It's not like this is something that's really up for debate. I mean, we all know that spending 8 hours playing video games is not good for anybody's mental health. And we all know that it's good to have face-to-face interactions at least sometimes every day. So what even is the solution? I don't really think there is one. But there are always going to be people who end up being lonely no matter what. And there are always going to be other people who go out and do things and talk to people face-to-face. It's not like face-to-face interaction is going to suddenly cease to exist as time goes on. Is it easier to never go outside and be online? Yeah, of course, we all know that. But we also are aware of the fact that it's bad for our mental health. So what should we prioritize more? Putting as little effort into life as humanly possible, or maximizing good mental health outcomes? But we do things that are terrible for ourselves and our own well-being all the time. I mean, how many people watching this never eat junk food? Sure, maybe out of the many people who are watching this, there are a few people who are on a keto diet and who exercise 4 hours a day. But that's not the majority of people. In fact, it never has been the majority of people. Let's be real, we all do things on purpose that we know are bad for ourselves, and none of us intend on stopping anytime soon, do we? Well, that's because it doesn't actually make that much of a difference in the grand scheme of things, right? If you just eat one ice cream sandwich, for instance, you're not going to suddenly gain 300 pounds. You are aware of this, so you eat the ice cream sandwich. But what if you're somebody like me who can eat 5 ice cream sandwiches and feel absolutely no different? What is to stop you from eating 5 ice cream sandwiches a day? I suppose it would be the fact that you know that that's bad for you, so you don't do it. Even though in the moment it might give you a small amount of satisfaction. But the main difference there would be you have to go out of your way to spend your hard-earned money on ice cream sandwiches, which most likely requires you to go to the store in person. So it's not nearly as convenient as going online. So there is some sort of barrier there. But what external factors limit the time you spend on the internet? I suppose it would be things like school and work. But aside from necessary things like that, what are the forces at play that are going to prevent you from spending too much time on the internet? I suppose if you're a child, it could be your parents telling you to get off your ass and actually fucking do something with your life. But that only goes so far. The only thing that can stop you from spending 8 hours in Discord VCs or playing video games or watching YouTube is you. You are the only person who could possibly stop you from doing that. But that requires self-discipline, which is very hard when you're trying to stop yourself from doing something that is right in front of you at all times. We're all gonna be terminally online to an extent. I mean, hell, I'm not one who is in a position to give advice on how to not be terminally online even when I'm not making videos or streaming or whatever, which I think are perfectly healthy and fun things for me to do. I am constantly consuming media on YouTube. And that goes for all of the people that are watching this as well. You consuming this media right now, this very video, in fact. It is media that will, in one way or another, change the way you think ever so slightly, if nothing else. Even if you disagree with everything I'm saying, or agree with everything I'm saying, and don't feel like you have to think about it, your tendency to watch videos is, over time, going to shape you into a certain type of person. Whether or not that is a good or a bad thing, if that is a strength or a weakness of people, being able to absorb information and reflect that information, being able to act as a sponge where you can absorb it and then have it squeezed out of you if need be. But what do you actually get out of media consumption? Our mindless consumption of information, even if it seems educational, is not anything more than mindlessly and passively consuming information. What do we do with that information? I don't know. I mean, if you watch hours and hours of self-help content, surely you would be getting something out of it, right? Wrong. If you watch 5 hours of self-help content every single day, those are 5 hours that you could have used to actually go and do something that was being suggested in those videos. It's not like they're saying anything that you don't already know. You already know everything in those self-help videos. All they're doing is regurgitating the same knowledge over and over again in order to get ad revenue. This is not a new thing. The reason why people will spend hours watching self-help content is not because they're actually taking steps to get better. It's because they feel like they're being productive when they do so. But what even is productivity, and why do we perceive productivity as something important? Well, it's because it is something important. I mean, we all have to be productive to some extent, right? But how does your brain distinguish between a false perception of productivity and actual productivity? Well, it doesn't intuitively. I mean, sure, from listening to me talk about it and frame it a certain way, you intuitively understand that watching 5 hours of self-help content is fucking worthless and is not actually going to do anything for you. But while you are in the process of doing that, and while you are actually watching those videos, you genuinely feel like you are going to be implementing this revolutionary advice that you might not know. You are actively spending time trying to help yourself, which feels like it is something that is inherently productive. And if you don't have enough self-awareness to tell yourself not to do that, there is really nothing stopping you from doing that. So you feel like you're doing something productive, when in reality, you're just hearing things that you already kind of know in the back of your mind. But there are different levels of productivity, and generally speaking, human beings are fucking lazy. I mean, our natural inclination is usually going to be taking the path of least resistance while getting what we want, and feeling like we're being at least somewhat productive. Obviously, there are going to be some people that are more ambitious than others, who are naturally inclined to do what makes them successful. But a lot of the time, that isn't the case, and, well, if you've been spending enough time to watch this entire video on YouTube, which, thank you, I appreciate, but if you're watching YouTube all day, you're probably not getting much out of it. But you feel like, because you're absorbing information, that you are. It feels productive, and that's enough. Even though you know that you're not being productive, your brain subconsciously thinks that it's productive, and that it is doing what it needs to, even though it's not. It's not really a matter of how much time you spend online, necessarily. I already explained at the beginning of this video that some online activities are more mentally healthy than others. If you spend 8 hours a day mindlessly PvPing in Minecraft Pocket Edition no debuff, I would argue that that's probably a lot worse than at least talking to people online for 8 hours a day. I am not somebody who is going to try to dictate what is and is not good for you. All I can do is say what I think is probably good for the average person and what is good for me. But have I even said anything that you don't already know? Did you click on this video not being aware of the fact that it's bad to play Minecraft for 8 hours a day? No, you already knew that. You didn't need me to sit here and lecture you for you to figure that out. But the whole point of this video is not necessarily to provide you with any new revolutionary information. The point of this video is to get you to actively think about certain information that we all already know. Because if it is at the forefront of what you're thinking about, maybe then you can do something about that information. Though, most likely, you will continue to watch another video after this one. As would I. Me making this video right now doesn't actually make me any more likely to go outside and touch grass, or actually do anything. But my goal with this video is not to tell you what's right and what's wrong. But there isn't much more that I can say that hasn't already been said in this video. Sure, I could start reading through some studies about the mental health impacts of spending 8 hours a day playing Fortnite, but I think we already know that, yeah, that's bad for you. You don't need a study to tell you that. Only you can do what's best for you, and only I can do what's best for me. That being said, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I mean, I know it was a little bit different than what I would normally post. I've been experimenting with content, so if you like this video and this format, be sure to let me know by leaving a like, and commenting and letting me know what you did or did not like about the video. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I'm, again, trying to branch out. I will see you all in the next one. And before you go, I highly recommend watching one of these two videos right here on the end screen because, I mean, if you made it this far, surely you would love to watch more of my content, right? I mean, imagine scrolling down through suggested videos when there are 2 suggested videos right in front of you. I'm just saying.